You've poured months, maybe even years into a massive construction project. It looks finished, right? The steel is up, the concrete is poured, but how do you prove it's actually done, that it meets every single spec? Well, today, we're tackling that final make-or-break test, Clause 9 of the FIDIC contract. This is the last hurdle before you can finally hand over the keys.
You know, there's a huge difference between a project that's just built and one that's truly finished. This question really gets to the core of it. How do you prove that what you've built actually works the way it's supposed to? And that's the exact problem that the tests on completion are there to solve.
So to help us navigate all this, we're going to be using the industry's gold standard as our guide, the FIDIC 2017 Red Book. I mean, this is the rule book that governs some of the biggest, most complex projects on the entire planet. And Clause 9? Well, that's where everything gets put to the ultimate test.
So what are these tests, really? The official definition from the contract is super clear. These are the specific tests laid out from the very beginning that absolutely must be passed before the employer officially takes over. And let me tell you, this is not just some friendly checklist. It's a massive contractual obligation that hits everything from your payments to liability. It's a big deal.
The best way to think about Clause 9 is like a giant gateway. See, on one side, you've got all the controlled chaos of construction, the building, the assembly, all the heavy machinery. And on the other side, that's the project's real life, the handover, the final payments, the start of operations. Clause 9 is the lock on that gate, and proven performance is the only key that's going to open it.
So, how does the contractor get their hands on that key? How do they unlock the gateway? Well, it all kicks off with a really clear, contractually defined process, a test plan that leaves absolutely no room for error.
Okay, this timeline from subclause 9.1 is your roadmap and you gotta stick to it. Every single deadline is critical. Let's break it down. It all starts 42 days out. That's when the contractor has to submit their detailed test program. The engineer then gets a 14-day window to look it over. Next, the contractor sends a formal 21-day notice saying, hey, we're gonna be ready. And then, the tests have to start within 14 days of that date. It's this super precise, non-negotiable countdown for a good reason. It stops any last-minute surprises and keeps everyone on track.
Now, the engineer isn't just a bystander here, they are the gatekeeper. Their job is to review the contractor's plan, and here's a really key point. If they don't respond with a formal objection inside that 14-day window, the contract basically says they've given a notice of no objection. In other words, silence equals consent. It's a clever little mechanism that makes sure the process doesn't get stuck, which means the engineer has to be on the ball.
And here's something a lot of people miss. The job isn't done when you pack up the test equipment. The contractor runs the tests, sure, but then they have to submit a certified report of the results. This isn't just a bunch of data, it's formal, official proof. The engineer then gets another 14-day window to review that report. See, passing the test is one thing. Getting that formal sign-off is what actually gets you to the taking over certificate.
But let's be real. In the real world, things almost never go perfectly to plan, right? So what happens when this perfectly planned timeline hits a snag? Let's take a look at what the contract says about delays and do-overs.
It's a question every single project manager dreads. I mean, a delay at this final stage can have some serious financial and operational blowback. The contract gives us a clear roadmap, but the path you go down depends entirely on one big question. Whose fault is it? And just look at the difference in consequences here. It's night and day. If the employer is the one causing the delay, maybe they're not providing access or something, the project can actually be deemed taken over. That's a huge protection for the contractor. But if the contractor is the one dragging their feet, the engineer steps in with a formal notice giving them 21 days to get it done. The outcomes couldn't be more different. And what if the contractor just ignores that notice? Well, the contract has some serious teeth. The engineer can issue a second notice, and if there's still no action, the employer's own team can literally step in, do the test themselves, and then send the bill to the contractor for all the costs. It's a major escalation that makes sure the project doesn't get stuck in limbo forever.
Okay, now let's talk about the most critical situation. What happens when it's not about delays, but about straight-up failure? What happens when the work just isn't good enough, and that gate to handover stays firmly locked? So, failing the first time, it happens. The contractor is supposed to fix whatever's wrong, learn from it, and try again. But what happens if the works fail a second time?
This is where the engineer's authority really kicks in, and believe me, the stakes for the whole project suddenly get incredibly high.
Yeah, the contract does not allow for endless cycles of failing and retesting. You don't get unlimited chances. After a repeat failure, subclause 9.4 gives the engineer the power to make a final call on the project's future. And they've got 3 very distinct paths to choose from.
This slide really lays out the engineer's power. They can choose mercy, that's option 1, and order another retest. Maybe the fix is simple, and they're pretty confident it'll pass. Or they can be pragmatic with option 3 and issue the taking over certificate, but with a price cut, if the failure isn't that critical. Or they can use the nuclear option, option 2, and reject the works entirely.
But let's be clear, rejecting the whole project is not a decision anyone takes lightly. The contract sets an extremely high bar. To reject the works, the failure has to be so catastrophic that it deprives the employer of substantially the whole benefit of what they paid for. We're not talking about minor defects here. We are talking about a fundamental, project-killing failure.
So, with all that on the table, how do you actually navigate this whole process and stay out of trouble? Here are 3 absolute pro tips for any engineer or project manager who's dealing with Clause 9.
First things first, master your timeline. Those numbers we talked about, 42, 21, 14, burn them into your brain. They are not just suggestions. They are your contractual lifeline. Whether you're the contractor or the engineer, if you miss one of these deadlines, you're not just causing a delay, you are opening the door to some serious claims and disputes.
Second, and this is so important, document everything. The physical test is only half the story. That certified test report you submit is your official proof of completion. Think of it as your golden ticket. Without that piece of paper, reviewed and accepted, you simply cannot move forward. No report, no handover. It's as simple as that.
And finally, communicate clearly and formally. That word notice is all over Clause 9 for a reason. Whether you're submitting a program, objecting to a report, or demanding a retest, it has to be a formal, written notice. We're not talking about a quick email here. A formal notice is your contractual shield. It's your legal armor. It protects your position.
So, let's say you did it. The tests are passed, the reports are all signed off, the employer takes over the works, the gateway is officially unlocked, you're home free, right? Well, not exactly. All that successful handover does is start the clock on a brand new phase, the defects notification period under Clause 11. But hey, we'll be breaking that one down in a future explainer.